On the eve of the wedding, my mother was in a car accident and urgently needed matching blood. Because my mother has a special blood type, even though I just found out I was pregnant, I still decided to donate blood for her. But while I was miscarrying due to excessive blood loss, my fiancé and childhood friend were wholeheartedly accompanying Pei Nian, who was undergoing cosmetic surgery in the hospital. Ignoring the pain, I knelt down and pleaded, which finally led to my fiancé personally performing surgery on my critically ill mother. When the surgery was over, Chuzé said that it had failed and my mother had passed away. 2 days later, I heard Pei Nian's intimate sounds with the two brothers through the door. Pei Nian playfully complained, "Brother Chu Imo truly lives up to being a race car driver. He hit that old lady right on target, and Brother Chuzé is amazing too. He directly killed the old lady." Thanks to you both, I was able to get Xinyan's blood for the surgery. Though separated by a door, the ambiguous sounds of the two men and one woman inside were particularly clear. Pei Nian was breathing softly, her voice sweet and alluring. "Brother Mo, touch my face. Isn't it pretty? Don't I look as beautiful as before?" Chu Mo's voice was full of tender affection. "You've always been beautiful, Nian. Don't ever have surgery again. It pains me even to see you get an injection, let alone undergo such a major operation." Chu Zhe stood beside them, full of jealousy, and spoke up competitively. "Why do you only ask Brother Mo to touch your face but not Brother Zhe? If it wasn't for me, your brother, coming up with the solution, how would you have gotten blood that matches your blood type, little girl?" Pei Nian let out a light snort and began to reproach Chu Zhe. "I only want Brother Mo to touch me because he's devoted to me, unlike someone who claims to like me but actually got engaged to another woman." Chu Zhe wasn't angry and patiently tried to coax her. "She is just a tool that my brother specially found for you. No matter when, my brother only likes you the most." Pei Nian was not swayed by his words and continued to act spoiled. "But you are still engaged to her, right? If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have been disfigured, and you still want to marry her." Chu Zhe chuckled lightly, kissing her deeply again, his tone so relaxed as if he were telling a joke. "That was just a delaying tactic, which is why we chose to act the night before the wedding. Now that old woman is dead, Shunyan must not be thinking about the wedding anymore. Brother has already given you the necklace made from Shunyan's rib, so don't be angry with him anymore." Pei Nian touched her nose and pondered for a moment before saying slowly, "That's true, and I have to thank Xinyan's rib for allowing me to have such a beautiful nose." Stunned for 2 seconds, she innocently inked her eyes, looking like a pure white lotus, as if the seductive vixen just now wasn't her. "But Sister Xinyan has already given you her rib. She must love you very much. If she knew you treated her this way, she would definitely be very sad." Chu Imo hugged Pei Nian, affectionately rubbing her face. "Baby is just too kind, even at this point, still thinking of that bad woman. This is all Shunyan owes you. Don't say that giving away her own rib and blood is one thing. Even if she died, it would be the retribution she deserves." Such harsh words drifted into my ears without any concealment. Hearing this, my hands clinging to the door frame couldn't help but tremble, and tears uncontrollably streamed down my cheeks. It turns out that my infatuation with my fiancé and my filial piety towards my mother were just making a wedding dress for someone else. 2 days ago, I had a miscarriage due to excessive blood loss. Now, hearing such a brutal truth, the pain in my abdomen began to intensify again. In my days, I recalled the image of my mother lying on the operating table. That day was an emergency, and because of my mother's rare blood type, no one at the hospital dared to perform her surgery. I had to prepare a large amount of blood for my mother while being pregnant myself. However, just before the surgery, the doctor on duty that night suddenly disappeared. I could only call Dr. Chuzé for help while crying, but he calmly said, "I have my own matters to attend to. Anyan is having cosmetic surgery, and I need to be with her. She only has me. If I don't treat her well, who else will? You're grown up now. You need to learn to solve problems on your own. Can't you be more sensible? Isn't Chu Mo with Pei Nian? They're the real couple. You're getting married tomorrow. What's the point of always hanging around them?" As I spoke, my voice trembled uncontrollably. "My mother is about to die, and only you can help me. Chuzé, I beg you." Seeing that he didn't respond, I simply ran through the heavy rain to the neighboring plastic surgery hospital. The moment I saw him, I knelt down on the ground, crying and leaning against his legs. "Chuzé, I know I've been one-sided all these years, but could you please, for the sake of soon becoming my husband, save my mom?" Suddenly, a sharp female voice interrupted my plea. Pei Nian stood aside, pointing at me and laughing heartily. "Sister Shunyan, you're going to be a bride tomorrow. Can you pay a little attention to your image?" I was surprised why she was standing here. "Pei Nian, Aren't you supposed to be undergoing plastic surgery? She waved her hand in a showy manner. The surgery hasn't started yet. I'm still a little baby inside. I need Brother Emo and Brother Zay to accompany me the whole time. You should worry about yourself first. Look at the blood beneath you. Don't you even know you're having your period? Stop embarrassing yourself out here, huh? I clutched my aching, numb lower abdomen and looked down in horror. I discovered that my path was marked with drops of blood, and even my snow-white dress was stained dark red. But I was already 2 months pregnant, so this blood couldn't possibly be from menstruation. Pei Nian across the way rummaged through her bag and threw a pack of sanitary napkins at my face. Here, consider it a reward for you. I heard everything you said on the phone just now. I'm not heartless. If you make me happy, I can also give Zayga to you. I am pregnant and have lost a large amount of blood. Now, even speaking takes my breath away. What do you want me to do? Pei Nian originally had a pretty doll-like face, but due to a previous bone fracture, it grew slightly crooked. She looked at me, forcing a smile as she spoke. I love puppies the most. If you can roll on the ground and bark like a dog 3 times, I will agree to your request. I cast a pleading glance at Chu Emo and Chu Zay, only to find them both looking at Pei Nian with indulgent expressions. Chu Zay opened his mouth but supported Pei Nian. Nian is different from you. She is simple-minded and wants to command others. How can she do that without showing some sincerity? I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Ignoring the strange looks from others, I rolled on the ground while making ridiculous barking sounds. Pei Nian was amused by me and finally allowed Chu Zay to leave to perform surgery on my mother. During the wait for the surgery, I fainted, and when I woke up, the nurse beside me said, "Due to excessive blood loss, the child could not be saved. Please accept my condolences." As for my mother, the nurse also informed me that Dr. Chu had done his best, but unfortunately, the surgery failed, and my mother had passed away. I staggered out of bed, wanting to see my mother one last time, but Chu Zay stopped me at the doorway. He held me tightly in his arms, his expression filled with pain. "You're too weak right now. You need to rest for a few days. Let me handle your mother's funeral arrangements. Even though your mother is gone, you still have me. I'll always be by your side." With mother gone, Chu Zay truly became my only support in this world. In the end, I listened to him and obediently stayed in the hospital bed for 2 days. During these 2 days, I secretly watched like a thief as the other 3 people shared their joy on social media. Pei Nian was unusually active these days. She posted a photo of the 3 of them on Weibo with the caption, "Since the law doesn't allow 3 people to be together, I'll just be your 2 siblings' little sister for life. From today on, I'm changing my name to Chu Nian." In the photo, Pei Nian had successfully undergone surgery, and her newly reconstructed face looked exactly like a female version of Chu Zay. Pei Nian Sqa. Ted in the middle of the twin brothers, holding a bouquet of roses. At first glance, she really looked like their sister. Chu Zay and Chu Emo also posted on Weibo one after the other. The content of the Weibo posts is, "Congratulations to my beautiful little princess on being discharged from the hospital successfully." The photos accompanying the post were identical to those posted on Pei Nian's Weibo. The only difference was that they all cropped out each other, keeping only their individual photos with Pei Nian. Since Pei Nian had a beauty mark under her right eye, even their Weibo profile pictures were matching, both using heart emojis with smiling faces, with a small ink, deliberately placed under the right eye. I trembled as I swiped the screen, watching the blessings for the 3 of them in the comments section, tears unknowingly falling onto my phone screen. In high school, Chu Emo and Chu Zay once competed to pursue me. The exquisite breakfast on my desk every morning, the school bag always filled with snacks and flowers, and his companionship after school. All these made me the envy of every girl in school. They said, "You are so lucky, being pursued by twin brothers, one a top student and the other a campus king, and they are both so handsome. You are simply the walking heroine of a romance novel." In ancient times, men could take concubines, so why can't women marry 2 at the same time now? Moreover, Shunyan is so beautiful. Every time I hear such amusing remarks, I can't help but laugh and tell them not to be ridiculous. Although the 2 brothers of the Chu family have identical faces, I only dedicate my deep affection to Chu Zay. When Chu Zay presented me with a scrapbook made up of 99 photos, I thought we would hold hands for a lifetime. But all the kindness the Chu brothers showed me gradually faded away with Pei Nian's return. They let Pei Nian move into the wedding house that belonged to me and Chu Zay, becoming the true mistress of this home. The wall that was supposed to display my wedding photos with Chu Zay is now occupied by various photos of Pei Nian and the Chu brothers. Even the decoration of the house follows Pei Nian's preferences, with lavender colors painted everywhere. At this moment, seeing the three people on the bed about to start a new round of intimacy, I almost ran away in embarrassment. But I hadn't taken 2 steps before my legs gave way, and I fell heavily to the ground. Hearing the strange noise, the people in the room immediately put on their clothes and rushed out to check. Yan Yan, when did you come back? Chu Zhe called my name while holding me in his arms and placing me on the tilted bed. He covered me with a quilt, lay beside me, and held me tightly, a hint of panic flashing in his eyes. But I couldn't tell whether this hint of panic was due to his concern for me or his worry about me exposing their trio's secret. The man I had shared a bed with for years, to whom I had given countless sincere feelings, turned out to be someone who plotted against my life and my mother's for the woman he loved. I even carried his child. I had planned to tell him about the baby at our wedding, as a surprise gift for him. I could only choke back tears with reddened eyes and say softly, "I miss my mom." Chu Zhe wiped away my tears, his voice carrying a hint of restraint. "Our wedding has been postponed by me. You are weak now and need to rest well. Seeing you like this makes me feel very distressed. It's all my fault. If my medical skills were more advanced, perhaps mother wouldn't have passed away." I looked at Chu Zhe's neck and found that the necklace made of ribs was indeed gone without a trace. I weakly tugged at the corner of my mouth. "Since the surgery failed, can you give me back my blood?" Upon hearing this, Chu Zhe paused, his eyes involuntarily glancing toward Pei Nian, who was standing at the doorway. He nervously patted my head and replied, "Silly girl, your blood type is so rare. Where would I find matching blood for you? Just rest well, and everything will be fine." Indeed, someone compatible with my blood type was standing not far from me, but she was your precious treasure that you held dear. You wouldn't let her shed even a single drop of blood. My heart turned ice cold in an instant, leaving me speechless. Chu Mo's expression also grew somewhat heavy. He came over to sit beside my bed, gently stroking my hair while saying that once I recovered, he would take me to see the ocean. I didn't respond and just curled up under the blanket. Chu Mo continued to comfort me. "I just made a pot of chicken soup at noon with lots of nourishing ingredients. Let me heat it up for you to drink." After saying this, he patted me through the blanket and went downstairs. Seeing this, Pei Nian angrily kicked the doorframe twice before running off somewhere. Shortly after, Chu Mo returned with a tray and placed it on the small table on the bed. Chu Zhe also helped me sit up, naturally holding me in his arms as he prepared to feed me the soup. But in the next moment, Pei Nian came stumbling over with her hands covering her face. As bad luck would have it, she knocked over the chicken soup on the table, and the scalding hot liquid spilled all over me without missing a drop, making me shudder from the burn. Pei Nian dramatically leaned into Chu Mo's arms, crying with tears streaming down her face. "What should I do? Brother Mo, Brother Zhe. Is this a side effect from the plastic surgery? My head hurts so much." Chu Zhe completely ignored my burns, pushed me aside, and instead took Pei Nian into his arms. "What's wrong? Let brother take you to rest, okay?" Pei Nian just nodded, and the two men eagerly wrapped their arms around her waist and carried her out. The brief moments of tenderness that had just developed between those two and me seemed as if they had never happened. As soon as she was carried out the door, Pei Nian said unhappily, "Why did you give that woman the chicken soup that Brother Mo made for me?" Chu Mo patiently coaxed her in a voice he thought I couldn't hear. "What I gave her was your leftover soup from lunch. I made a fresh pot for you. Baby, you never eat leftovers anyway, so isn't it perfect to give it to her?" She wrapped her arms around Chu Mo's neck and continued throwing a tantrum. I don't care. That unlucky woman drank your chicken soup. I never want to drink your chicken soup ever again. Ever since this woman came back, I really don't want to stay in this house anymore. If you don't take me out somewhere, I'll never forgive you both." The two men were amused by Pei Nian's tantrum and said to her, all right, your brothers will take you out." After saying this, Chu Zhe looked at me, the smile gradually fading from his face. He came to my side and said, seemingly apologetic, "Can't help it, have to indulge the kid when she's being unreasonable. We won't be back tonight. Take good care of yourself at home." Before I could respond, he rushed downstairs to find Pei Nian, worried she might be cold, and took a coat to keep her warm. Only after hearing the front door slam shut did I let go of my composure and burst into tears. In my anger, I finally let loose and flipped the bed table onto the floor. When I got out of bed and rushed to the door, I was immediately confronted by the photos of Pei Nian with the Chu family covering the walls. Everything in this house reminded me that I was never truly the real mistress here. Without hesitation, I grabbed the most prominent photo frame and smashed it violently to the ground. Unexpectedly, Behind the frame was a medium-sized hidden compartment, with a wooden box placed neatly inside. I stood stunned for a while before opening the box. Inside was a medical examination report and an old diary, the pages slightly yellowed with age. The medical report contained my information, with my blood type specially marked. As I flipped through the diary page by page, I watched the handwriting transform from childish to mature. Nearly half of the pages are filled with stories of Chu Ze's affection and longing for Pei Nian, until one page, where the tone begins to shift. Chu Ze even drew little flowers next to the words. Just reading the text, you can feel his excitement. He wrote, September 5, 2015. During the high school military training physical examination today, I found a female classmate whose blood type matches with An Yan's. This is great. As long as I keep that girl close by, we won't have to worry about any surgeries Nian might need. From this point on, the story that follows gradually begins to involve me. December 1, 2018. My brother and I tried everything possible to keep Shen Yan close to us. We were like two peacocks courting at school. It was ridiculous, but it was all for An Yan, so it was worth it. November 4, 2020. I lost a competition with my brother, and the consequence was that I had to confess to Shen Yan. She agreed, but my heart will forever belong to An Yan. On January 9, 2021, although Shen Yan is cheap, she is quite good in bed. Perhaps her only advantage is that she has a nice face and is good in bed. On August 18, 2022, An Yan is finally going back to the country. From now on, I will definitely not let An Yan suffer even a bit of grievance. The strokes on the paper became stronger as time went on. On May 21, 2023, Shen Yan is simply wicked to the core. She actually dared to tamper with An Yan's parachute, trying to frame her during the jump, causing An Yan to fail to land successfully and disfigure her face. On May 22, 2023, the saying, "Those who harm others ultimately harm themselves," is indeed true. Shen Yan ended up breaking her bones herself. I didn't expect she would even turn her own rib into a necklace and give it to me. Does she think I would pity her for this? It's really disgusting. On January 15, 2025, Shen Yan and I are getting married. I can finally tie her to my side for a lifetime, but her mother actually dared to scold me, saying I am not worthy of her daughter and forcing me to cancel the wedding. I need to think of a way to deal with this old woman. The notes end here. A whole notebook, not a single good word about me can be found. I was so angry that I laughed out loud. My face couldn't help but twist, and I immediately threw the diary into the cubby. For the sake of the child and my mother's life, I will definitely not let those three people go. I dialed the phone and put it to my ear. Rui, I've thought it through. I want to live in Hainan with you. A surprised voice came from the other end of the line. Oh my god, Yan, you finally figured it out. I told you long ago that Chu Ze is a scumbag. Wait for me, I'll buy a plane ticket and come to pick you up. We'll see each other tomorrow night. As soon as I hung up, I received a video. The video showed Pei Nian trying on wedding dresses with those two men in a restaurant. Pei Nian, dressed in luxurious wedding attire, held 2 diamond rings while admiring herself in the mirror, and spoke coquettishly to the man gazing attentively at her from behind. So beautiful, such a big diamond ring. Shen Yan couldn't get even one, yet I received 2. My brothers are so good to me. She looked down at her skirt adorned with golden threads, the scent of green tea almost overflowing from the screen. This dress is the most expensive wedding gown in the store. Since my brothers have given me such valuable rings, would it be too extravagant if they bought me this wedding gown as well? Chu Mo and Chu Ze both looked at her with admiration. How could that be? Only An Yan deserves such an expensive dress. The person messaging me was my college roommate, who went into the wedding industry after graduation. She sent me several voice messages, with a very disdainful tone. Living long enough, you really get to see all kinds of people. Someone's actually having a 3-person wedding. Right here at our hotel. Tomorrow. But the more I look at this groom, the more familiar he seems. Isn't this your boyfriend, Chu Ze? Looking at the ring in the video, I fell into deep thought, feeling both angry and amused. That ring was originally promised to me by Chu Ze, but I never saw any sign of it. Whenever I asked about it, Chu Ze would get very impatient. Can't you be more understanding of the craftsman? Don't you know that good work takes time? If you're really that impatient, why don't you just buy a cheap ring from Yiwu? So it turns out the ring wasn't taking time for craftsmanship, but was on someone else's finger. Pei Nian was right. The ring I couldn't get even one of, she somehow had 2. When I was trying on wedding dresses, Chu Ze just sat aside impatiently playing with his phone. No matter which dress I picked up, he would say, "That's good enough. You're just average looking anyway. It doesn't matter which one you wear." But I never imagined then that such a cold person would one day look at someone else with such deep affection and tell her, "You deserve the most expensive dress." Just when I was feeling dejected, Pei Nian sent me a few text messages. "Sister, I was in a bad mood at home earlier and acted out with you. You won't mind, right? I originally didn't want to mention this since you were in the hospital, but now that you are discharged, I think it's not good for you to be absent from this matter. Aren't you and Brother Zay getting married soon? Mom specially organized a banquet, thinking it would be nice for our family to gather, and it's happening tomorrow. I've sent you the address. See you tomorrow." I didn't expect that just after someone kindly reminded me, the person involved would come and bring it up themselves. I stared at the address on my phone and realized that this restaurant was exactly the venue for my wedding with Chu Zay. Even the hall number hadn't changed. Clearly, Pei Nian is the one who can't be seen in public, yet she boldly asked me to attend the wedding, simply wanting to assert her dominance and see how I would suffer. Coincidentally, I also have a gift I want to give them. The next day, I attended in full attire, wearing a red qipao that looked extremely festive. I looked around and found that the decoration of the wedding hall was still so familiar. The reason I was so familiar with it was that everything in this hall was designed by me personally. This was the only wedding in my life, a precious memory between Chu Zay and me, into which I had poured 2 ounces of effort and heart. But at this moment, the person standing on the red carpet was not my beloved. There were not many people at the banquet, all close relatives and friends of those three. Perhaps it was because the guests felt no need to be formal. The wedding was held very casually. At this moment, during the toast, Pei Nian, dressed in a golden wedding gown and wearing a crown, stood obediently beside her mother-in-law, chatting with her. Every gesture of the mother-in-law showed her affection for the person in front of her. When I entered the door, everyone in the hall was taken aback. Mother-in-law rolled her eyes and said with disdain, "What a nice wedding ruined by inviting this sickly person." Chu Zay and Chu Emo, both wearing groom suits, stopped what they were doing and said, half guilty and half surprised, "Yan Yan, why are you here?" "Yes, you haven't fully recovered yet. Don't be reckless." I folded my arms and spoke expressionlessly. "If I remember correctly, this is supposed to be my wedding venue." The mother-in-law pulled Pei Nian behind her and snorted, "No need for your sarcasm. This was indeed prepared as your wedding venue, but who knew that a certain sickly person and her equally useless mother would cause such an unfortunate incident right before the wedding? How inauspicious. Just look at yourself. What qualities do you have worth mentioning? You're not even from a family of our status. I'm too embarrassed to tell others you're my future daughter-in-law. It's shameful." I smiled weakly and asked, "And it's not shameful that your 2 sons are marrying the same woman?" Chu Zay and Chu Emo looked somewhat uncomfortable. Both wanted to approach me, but Chu Zay beat the other to it. He grabbed my hand, flustered and eager to explain. "Yan Yan, this has nothing to do with An Yan, and it's not what you think." The mother-in-law slapped the table and stood up in exasperation. "Son, don't spoil her. What's wrong with telling her the truth? What's wrong with An Yan marrying both of my sons? An Yan is smart and sensible, and she studied overseas. Her parents and I are old friends. I know best what kind of person An Yan is. In my eyes, only An Yan is worthy of my 2 excellent sons. With your lowly background, you are not worthy to step into the Chu family's door. I never intended to let you marry my son from the very beginning." The people nearby also began to discuss loudly. "Exactly, not to mention letting her marry my cousin. Even if my cousin were to perform surgery for her mother, I still think she and her mother are unworthy. My cousin is so skilled in medicine, yet her mother still died without any fight. She must have been a worthless life, unable to bear good fortune. If Shen Yan forcibly marries into the Chu family, she probably won't live long either. Retribution will come sooner or later." I struggled to suppress the Ange. That was about to burst forth and forced a smile. "Since that's the case, I wish the 3 of you a happy marriage. I have something to attend to, so I'll be leaving now." As soon as I finished speaking, I turned and walked out without hesitation. Unexpectedly, just as I reached the stairs in the hall, a girl holding up her skirt chased after me from behind. "Hey, did I allow you to leave?" I stopped at the top of the stairs and smiled at her. Pei Nian elegantly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and provocatively said, "As you just saw, this wedding was actually prepared for me all along. I am the true bride for both Chu Zay and Chu Emo. All your hard work preparing for the wedding was just making a wedding dress for someone else. Everyone blessed the love between the 3 of us, while you're nothing but a tool, a walking blood bag." These words no longer have any power to hurt me now. I nodded indifferently. "So what? Haven't I already given everything up for you all? Something I said must have struck a nerve, as she suddenly slapped me hard across the face. Stop pretending. I can see her dying inside. Chu Zhe and Chu Mo only have me in their hearts. Even when it came to saving your mother that day, Chu Zhe only helped you because I gave him permission. You probably don't know, but your mother's death was not an accident at all. I need to undergo plastic surgery, which requires a certain amount of blood. My two brothers had already guessed that you wouldn't willingly give me your blood, so brother Chu Mo drove the car to hit your mother, right at the entrance of this restaurant. Do you know why I made you bark like a dog that day? Because the sight of you begging on your knees was as pathetic as a dog. We caused your mother's death, and yet you still had to roll on the ground and bark, didn't you? She grabbed my collar, her demeanor aggressive. Suddenly, Chu Zhe and Chu Mo rushed over, calling out Pei Nian's name. As soon as Pei Nian saw the two of them, she immediately threw her crown down the stairs, messed up her hair, and then pitifully threw herself into their arms. Her acting was remarkable, and the tears came easily. Brother Mo, Brother Zhe, I originally had good intentions and wanted to ask sister to stay. But she hit me and threw away my crown. How did such a sickly person have so much strength? I suspect her weakness from the past few days was just an act. The two members of the Chu family held Pei Nian tightly in their arms, and Chu Mo questioned in an interrogating tone. Shen Yan, I know your mother passed away and you're emotionally unstable, but you can't take your anger out on Nian. Chu Zhe continued where his brother left off. In our hearts, she's like a little sister. She's never been married before, so what's wrong with us accompanying her for her first wedding? When did you become so selfish? You were originally nothing. It was because of Pei Nian that you gained any value at all. I had long seen through their true faces and calmly said, fine, if I'm nothing, then I'll remove myself from this relationship between the four of you. After saying that, I left down the stairs without looking back. Pei Nian broke free from the embrace of the two men, trying to grab my hand. Before she could finish speaking, who gave you permission to leave? But she lost her balance, and the grab turned into a push. Her push was quite forceful, causing me to tumble down the stairs, with blood gushing from my head after hitting the base of the handrail. After rolling down, I lay motionless on the ground as if dead. A few seconds later, Pei Nian's scream echoed through the hall. Hiding behind the two men, she trembled and said, I just wanted to pull her back. I didn't expect she would. What should I do, brother? Did I kill someone? Am I going to jail? Chu Mo glanced at me lying at the bottom of the stairs, unsure if I was dead or alive, then pulled Pei Nian into his arms, his voice tinged with panic. It's okay, don't be afraid. I already have one life on my hands. I'm not afraid to take another one for you. Besides, she fell down by herself. It has nothing to do with you. Chu Zhe remained calm and composed, not even giving me a glance. Right, what's there to be afraid of? If the police ask, just say, it was the two of us. Chu Mo paused, suddenly realizing. But what if she dies? What will happen when a Nian needs blood in the future? A person collapsed on the ground, blood flowing from her head, and those nearby were not worried about her death, but rather about what would happen to her little green plum if she died. Upon hearing this, Chu Zhe confidently stepped down the stairs and kicked my leg while standing next to me. Yen, stop pretending. A Nian is already timid. If you scare her, can you take responsibility? But after kicking me a few times, I still didn't respond, so he simply sat down on the steps. I didn't expect you to love acting so much. All right, we'll just wait here for you to wake up. At this moment, the medical staff from the restaurant likely saw the surveillance footage at the stairway and hurried over with rescue equipment. In less than 20 minutes, the ambulance finally arrived, but before they could lift me up, Chu Zhe had already taken the lead. I will stay by your side and see how long you can keep pretending. The three of them came to the hospital with the same purpose, watching me as if they were watching a joke. It wasn't until they saw me being pushed into the operating room that Chu Zhe showed a hint of confusion. During the rescue, the doctor ran out of the operating room, anxiously saying, the patient has lost too much blood, but her blood type is special. Is there anyone among you who matches her blood type? Chu Zhe and Chu Mo almost simultaneously looked at Pei Nian, but they just hesitated and stared without answering for a long time. After an almost stalemate of several minutes, Chu Zhe weakly shook his head. We don't have. At the same time, two more doctors walked out of the operating room, their tone half regretful and half helpless. Due to the lack of timely blood supply, we failed to save the patient. The patient's condition has deteriorated to such an extent, it's obvious how negligent you've been in caring for the patient. Don't you know that the patient just had a miscarriage? The word miscarriage entered his ears, and Chu Zhe was taken aback, his pupils revealing surprise. He tightly grasped the doctor's arm, pressing for answers. She is pregnant? How is that possible? When did this happen? The doctor shook his head helplessly. It's already March, and the miscarriage probably happened a couple of days ago. Aren't you the patient's boyfriend? You don't even know this. Men nowadays really should not have children if they are not responsible. Chu Zhe's expression gradually became serious, and he even lost strength in his legs, suddenly kneeling on the ground. Could it be that the blood on the floor of the plastic surgery hospital that day was our child? Before Chu Zhe could recover from the immense shock, Chu Emo kicked him hard to the ground. Didn't you just say in the hotel that Yan Yan was pretending? Weren't you very confident? What's going on now? Chu Zhe was furious, standing up and punching Chu Emo back with all his might. Why are you pretending to be a good person now? If you really wanted to save Yan Yan, why didn't you expose Pei Nian when they were asking about the blood? Seeing the two men who were usually so gentle with her suddenly arguing like madmen, Pei Nian turned pale with fright and didn't dare make a sound. Chu Emo wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said hatefully, "A scumbag who doesn't even know his own woman is pregnant has no right to criticize me. I'm truly glad you two aren't officially married yet, because you don't deserve to be with her. I'm taking Yan Yan's remains." These words hit Chu Zhe's sore spot, and he immediately responded through gritted teeth. "Yan Yan is my fiancée. Everything about her belongs to me." Suddenly, a female voice interrupted their endless argument. "Only I have the right to take Yan Yan's remains." Both Chu brothers widened their eyes and looked up in shock. Li Rue. Without giving the two a chance to refute, Li Rue revealed her credentials. "Because I am not only Shen Yan's best friend, but also her designated guardian." Thus, disregarding the heart-wrenching pleas of the two, Li Rue took away my body and privately prepared for my funeral. However, the two from the Chu family were undeterred and somehow found Li Rue's residence, kneeling in front of her house every day. They begged Li Rue for a chance, at least to inform them where my body was buried. They said they wanted to visit me and make amends for the mistakes they made in the first half of their lives. Just as they had been kneeling for a month, Li Rue finally appeared before them holding an urn. She said, "I love dogs the most. If you can roll around and bark like dogs, I will give you Shen Yan's ashes." The two of them did not hesitate at all, lying on the ground and began to howl wildly, rolling until their faces were covered in mud, even more embarrassed than I was during my own time. Even Pei Nian, who was present, couldn't bear to watch and covered her face as she fled the scene. In the end, Li Rue was happy, and they got my ashes. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't dead at all. All of this was just a play I staged with Li Rue with the help of that private hospital. While they were kneeling outside day and night, I was inside drinking tea with Li Rue, enjoying the sight of their misery. After performing the final act, Li Rue and I left for Hainan to pursue a new life. Meanwhile, Chu Zhe and Chu Emo had finally obtained my ashes, but they still wouldn't let things rest. They said that since I loved traveling so much, they had to take my ashes to all the places I loved, so I wouldn't have any regrets. I couldn't help but find it laughable. When someone is alive, they don't know how to cherish them, but after death, they finally learn how to love. First, they took my ashes to the place where I often went skydiving, wanting to experience skydiving with me one more time. When the female owner there saw my ashes, her eyes also reddened with tears as she said while holding back sobs, "Shen Yan was a good girl, just unfortunate in life. First she was falsely accused, and then died so tragically." Upon hearing this, both members of the Chu family froze. Falsely accused? What false accusation? The female owner's eyes widened, her voice carrying anger. "You don't even know about this? Years ago, a girl surnamed Pei had an accident and falsely accused Shen Yan, claiming she had tampered with her parachute. But after our careful investigation, we discovered it was that Pei girl who did it herself, and she even damaged Shen Yan's parachute. That's what caused her broken ribs." The two Chu family members certainly didn't believe their childhood friend would do such a thing, and demanded evidence from the owner. However, after the female owner showed them the surveillance footage, they were completely speechless. Back then, Pei Nian was disfigured due to a parachute malfunction, and the two from the Chu family genuinely believed I had malicious intentions, which led them to hate me from the bottom of their hearts. But now, someone has told them directly that they have hated the wrong person. The truly malicious one is the woman they are willing to sacrifice their lives to love. From the day they learned the truth, the two of them have been like madmen. Because my favorite city is Hainan, they wander the streets all day holding my urn. But the world is small. As long as they persist, they will eventually meet. At night, they take turns wandering the streets with my urn. their distracted state causing all passers-by to avoid them. And I made the same choice as the passers-by. But before I could turn to leave, Chu Zhe unexpectedly shouted my name. Yan Yan. He rushed towards me, holding the urn tightly, his expression and words both utterly frantic. Yan Yan, is this your soul? Is it because you can't bear to part with me that you came back to see me? Chu Emo snatched the urn from his arms and retorted. Impossible. Yan Yan must have come back to see me. Seeing them act in such a bizarre manner like cold palace concubines, I was even more certain that they were truly insane. So, I let down my guard and pretended to be a ghost without blushing or a racing heart. I died unjustly. Of course I have to come back. Chu Emo excitedly knelt at my feet, crying. It's all my fault. I was just too pretentious when I was young. The thing I regret the most in this life is giving you to that beast Chu Zhe. From the first time we met, I liked you. I deliberately got together with Pei Nian just to see if you would be jealous. I looked him up and down, hating him. You like me? Then, why did you crash into my mom and kill her? You staged such a big scene, making me donate blood to Pei Nian. Chu Emo pointed at Chu Zhe, looking a bit wronged. Did you know? It was Chu Zhe who made me do it. He said he only wanted to be with Pei Nian, and that as long as I helped him, he would break off the engagement with you, allowing us to be together. Chu Zhe's eyes were like knives, wishing he could cut Chu Emo down. That was all a lie I told you. Yan Yan can only belong to me. After making his threats, he looked at me again. Yan Yan, I never loved Pei Nian. I was good to her only because my mother liked her. My mother has a heart condition, and I can only comply with her wishes. I killed your mother because she kept preventing us from being together. I had no choice. For our happiness, I had to sacrifice her. Can you forgive me? No wonder my mother repeatedly advised me to reconsider my marriage to Chu Zhe. She had already seen through this man. But at that time, all I could think about was Chu Zhe. I couldn't wait for him to finish speaking and couldn't help but slap him hard twice. Get lost. If you want my forgiveness, then go die. A life for a life. But he held me even tighter. I'll do anything for your forgiveness. I just beg you not to hate me. I snorted coldly. You could so casually give away the rib I gave you. How could someone like you ever be sincere? Before the words faded, he tremblingly took out that familiar necklace from his pocket. This is what you gave me. I've always kept it safe. What I gave to Pei Nian was just an ordinary bone. I only said that to make her happy. That wedding was also just to humor her, a show we put on. I would never get a marriage certificate with someone I don't love. It's okay if you don't believe me now. I will prove it to you. I will make everyone who has hurt you pay the price. After saying this, he picked up the urn and stood up. Wait for me on this street. In 2 days, I will definitely avenge you. After finishing this vow, he resolutely left with Chu Emo. I originally thought his words were just madness, but unexpectedly, I saw them again at this place 2 days later. However, this time, there was one more familiar figure. It was Pei Nian. Pei Nian seemed dissatisfied, mumbling. Brother Zhe, my perfect wedding was ruined by Xin Yan. Didn't you promise to make it up to me with another wedding? After remaining silent for a long time, Chu Zhe finally opened his mouth and sneered. After doing so many inhuman things, how dare you talk to me about marriage? Back then, when your face was disfigured in that parachuting accident, you falsely accused Shan Yan of sabotaging you and made me fall for all your tricks. If it weren't for your slander, how could I have neglected her all these years? Out of respect for my mother, I haven't treated you poorly these years. How could you be so malicious? Pei Nian never thought that Chu Zhe would know the truth about that year. She hid behind Chu Emo, trembling slightly. Did Brother Zhe bring me here just to say these things? I do this not because I love you, but because Grandma said I am the only woman worthy of marrying into the Chu family. What's so good about Xin Yan? Chu Emo, who had always protected Pei Nian, now acted out of character. He grabbed Pei Nian by the collar and threatened her. You love us? How ridiculous. If you really loved us, how could you let us break the law for your selfish desires? The commotion caused by the three of them attracted a lot of attention from people on the street. Everyone thought they had stumbled upon a dramatic scene and began to live stream and record it with their phones. Chu Emo slowly caressed Pei Nian's face, his tone softening. This face of yours, this body, all bear traces of Xin Yan. Since you look down on Yan Yan so much, let us help you erase her traces. Pei Nian gasped and couldn't help but step back. What do you mean? I don't need to erase anything. I think this is fine as it is. As Pei Nian stepped back, Chu Emo stepped forward, frightening her into quickly diving into Chu Zhe's arms. Brother Zay, Brother Mo is so scary. Chu Zay smiled and patted her head, then gently took out a folding fruit knife from his pocket. Don't be afraid, Nian. We just want you to repay what you owe to Shen Yan. Only then can she rest in peace and forgive us brothers. If you love us, you should help us fulfill this, okay? Before the words had finished, Pei Nian's eyes widened as she began to struggle violently in Chu Zay's arms. Pei Nian's screams didn't last long. A flash of silver pierced her neck, and then there was silence. In an instant, only the screams of passers-by remained on the street. Pei Nian had collapsed on the ground, blood still gushing from the wound, creating a horrifying scene. Chu Zay and Chu Mo were even more excited. They held up Shen Yan's blood and shouted around as if seeking credit. Yan, do you see? This woman owes you, and we have brought it back for you. Can you forgive us now? At this moment, a large number of police officers arrived just in time to stop the two from their next crazier actions. I just tightly gripped the phone I had just called the police with, expressionless, watching them receive the punishment they deserved. Even before being dragged into the police car, the two members of the Chu family still wouldn't give up, shouting, Shen Yan, I love you, can you hear me? It's okay if you don't forgive us. We will definitely show you our sincerity again. But they no longer had the chance to prove their sincerity, because shortly after this incident, they were sentenced, and they would never have the opportunity to see the light of day again. When Chu Zay and Chu Mo's mother, who had heart disease, learned about this matter, she suffered a heart attack on the spot and passed away immediately. And Chu Zay and Chu Mo would never know.